resistance. Resistance, Darren McDonald. Ohm's law states that current equals voltage divided by resistance. In layman's terms, this means that your production is equal to the work that you put into it, divided by the resistance that you overcome. You and I face resistance every day. It may be physical, mental, or emotional. Fellow Toastmasters, most honorable judges, and welcome guests. Today you'll learn about some of these resistances and a few examples I have of how you can overcome them. Physical resistance is the easiest to explain. You encounter it when you open a door, when you walk up some stairs, or for some of us, when we heft ourselves out of bed in the morning. I started noticing physical resistance when I was introduced to running. A friend at work invited me to run the half marathon around White Rock Lake. We thought that we walked so much during our work that 13 miles would be simple. We started off jogging, but didn't quite make the first mile. We kept walking at a brisk pace until about 6 miles. I don't really remember anything past 6 miles. What I vividly remember was the pain that kept me immobilized the next day. I decided to use Ohm's law for a more gradual approach to running. Vocalize, initiate, reach. When I'm on the jogging path, I visualize passing a point on that jogging path. I initiate the motion in my legs, and I reach for that goal when I hit that brick wall. Y'all know what the brick wall is? I know Dave does in cycling. That brick wall is when your brain says, go no further. Your legs feel like you just ran through wet cement. You're straining to get breath, and your vision of the long road in front of you has shrunk to just a few feet. Again, I visualize that point on the path. I initiate more breath into my lungs, and I reach for more energy as I break through that brick wall. I've pushed through that wall so many times now, I can see another half marathon in my future. You can overcome physical resistance if you visualize, initiate, and reach. Mental resistance is with us every minute of every day. I do actually talk about it today. It's that little voice inside your head that says, you can't do that. You're too fat. You're not good enough. Sound familiar? So many times we're unable to reach our goals because we don't start. We don't start because that little voice in our head says, you're going to fail. I was in a job that I dreaded going to each day. I heard that little voice saying, you're stuck. You're not good enough for anything better. I had conquered that voice in the jogging path, so I recognized it. I could apply another version of Ohm's law here. Recognize, vocalize, ignore. I recognized that little voice. I said, I can do better. I vocalized. I told my friends. I didn't complain about what I didn't like in my job. Instead, I told them what I wanted in a good job. I took action. I scanned the job boards. I submitted resumes. I had lots of phone interviews. One day, a friend forwarded me an opportunity at Southwest Airlines. You know, Southwest Airlines receives 250,000 resumes in 1 year. They only hire 2,500 people. I tried not to let that intimidate me. My resume got me into a pool of 10 candidates for phone interviews. After talking with them and applying my Toastmaster skills, I was in a final 3. I had a face-to-face interview with the team lead and the manager. It only lasted 15 minutes. As I left the interview, that little voice came up and says, they didn't like you. You said something wrong. You're not good enough. I figured if that opportunity knocked, others would knock as well. So I ignored that little voice. The next week, I received an offer letter from Southwest Airlines. I'm now in a good life-work balance with an ethical company who values their employees as much as they value their customers. I finally learned what a positive workplace feels like. And I've learned that if I recognize, vocalize, and ignore, I can get past my mental resistance and I can get positive things out of it. Emotional resistance is deeper than mental resistance. It's most noticeable after a traumatic event. A layoff, a divorce, or the loss of a family member. It's when we overcome emotional resistance that we grow as a person. When my parents brought me home, my sister Alicia was 8 years old. She thought I was her living doll. She helped my mother take care of me. She educated me before I entered school, and sometimes she disciplined me. One time I'd broken something in the house. My mother said, "You're going to get punished. Who do you want to spank you, Mommy or Daddy?" In a whimpering voice, I said, "Anybody but Alicia." My sister and I fought like cats and dogs, but underneath the growls and scars, there was a deep friendship. In 1989, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. I watched with sadness and pride as she fought it into remission with surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. The next year, it came back in her lymph nodes. Again, she fought it back. Following year, it appeared in her lungs. This time, she chose not to undergo the treatments. I trusted she knew her strength and she would survive. She did not. Eric, I wasn't there when my sister passed. I wish I had been. I went through those emotions of loss, anger, denial, loneliness. But as I've grown older, I start seeing my own mortality on the horizon. I begin to understand what she may have felt. She went through a horrific physical struggle, but I think the emotional struggle may have been just as hard. Our family was clinging to her, holding on to her, wanting her to stay with us, instead of celebrating her life and giving her a happy ending. I think she pushed through our emotional resistance in the end, and I finally learned to appreciate the time I had her in my life and accept her death, pushing through my own emotional resistance. I don't have a catchy formula for this story, but instead will simply reinforce it with words that we don't hear often enough. Live well, love much, laugh often. Mr. Contis.